Bordeaux to one of my favorite wines in Bordeaux, Chateau Figeac, and I'm very pleased to welcome head winemaker Frédéric Faye on the left and proprietor Hortense Manancourt on the right. Hi, Hortense.
Hello.
Hi. I'll probably just start by usually do.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm fine. I was just going to explain my first encounter with Figeac. I usually do this at the beginning, and it was actually many years ago, maybe 20 years ago, and I was in London at a wine tasting, and it was very quiet. It was very early on a Sunday morning, and a lot of the winemakers weren't there. Maybe they were drinking in London the night before, I don't know. But I saw there was a stand for Figeac, and behind the stand was Thierry Manancourt, the proprietor at the time, and his wife Marie-France, and they were standing at this tasting and there was nobody there, and they had the 88, 89 and 90 vintages, and I couldn't believe it because I had the proprietor, the famous proprietor, and these wonderful vintages of Figeac all to myself, and it's that memory has always stayed with me, and that was my first encounter with Figeac, and it's always been a chateau very close to my heart. Can just before we begin, I mean, how was the 2020? It's been a strange year. How has it been at Chateau Figeac?
So 2020, you mean the year or the vintage?
Well, both really. Yeah, both.
Because many things to say. Maybe 2020 is a very strange year regarding to, of course, the en primeur release, the COVID context, of course. But we did a very good release.
We have a sort of very creative en primeur campaign. We had to find new means, and that was very interesting. In fact, very interesting also on the estate about when we are caring about the vines, because there were frosts, there were hails, and there were a lot of people who couldn't work, and they were not working at the office, but they would come, and even the secretaries, and so they were coming for in the vineyards during the night to help for lighting the candles and things like that. So that was very special for the life on the vineyard, really.
So some of the people, some of the people that were working in the office, you moved out in to do other jobs in the vineyard where they could socially distance?
No, socially it was very special because we had distance between some rows of vines, so it was very regular. But those people were normally working at home because of teleworking, but they would come if we asked them for the night when it was freezing. So that was different aspect of this special context with the COVID. And all people of Chateau Figeac, the team of Chateau Figeac, they want to help, and we couldn't find anybody from elsewhere, from the normal team, which is not from Chateau Figeac, because they were not on work. So the people of Figeac were volunteers to help in the vines, and that's really good. Yeah, really nice from them.
Yeah, as you say, the 2020 started with frost risk in the vineyards, and we had hailstorm risk. We had the growing season started. Was not easy at the beginning, and now the summer started with very dry weather conditions. Veraison is going well. So yeah, it's a special vintage, I'm sure, but and it's very early vintage. Let's see. I don't have any crystal ball. Huh? I can't tell you about the quality at the end, and I would not talk about that. I'm smiling now, and of course the campaign about en primeur. It was so important to present this lovely vintage, which is 2019. Unfortunately, we could not welcome people. It was not possible, so we decided to send to limited
yes,
numbers.
very limited. critics, wine critics,
and importers samples with in very special conditions, monitoring the temperature, etc. 100% recyclable, right? Except the USB card checking the monitoring the temperature, except that. And no, it was important to show the job we did in 2019 because my opinion is kind of 2019 Figeac is kind of benchmark. Fabulous wine. It's very Figeac, pure crystalline, and the release was good because the family Manancourt decided to
help, in fact, to help the market to be, you know, when we did sort of a revolution some 7 years ago, we asked the Place de Bordeaux, the negotiants, to look at Figeac and help us to come back on the front of the scene. And this time that was very difficult for us, and they helped really. And so now we said, okay, you helped us, and Figeac is really coming back. We are so proud, and we thank you very much. So this year we listened to you. We listened also to the importers, to the amateurs, and we said, okay, we do a real how you call that, a real good deal to be on the wish list and to please the wine lovers and the Figeac lovers. And so it was very, very good because we had a very good success in the campaign. And
I can tell you that Figeac has been sold in 42 different countries, which is the highest level we ever had. And we have more buyers after Bordeaux negotiations than we used to have in the past. So it means, it was a good solution. Of course, the quality was there, and the decision of the family was important in terms of pricing. So
it was a big effort, but it was necessary, I think. And the deal is always to have success. So we have to please people. And when we make the price, we are really all ears open.
Mm-hmm. Do you think?
A very.
Yeah, I was going to say. Do you think the person that regularly buys Figeac, do you feel that they've changed in recent years, or is it the same people buying Figeac now as say 20 years ago?
For the moment, most of them are the same, but of course there are some new ones. Of course there are some young ones, and that's very interesting too. And we try not to have the change of prices too quickly and too quick. Sorry. And I think that's very important to make people know why we are changing the prices too. And they feel the difference of quality and the better wine, the better process we do now. And also we make a big effort looking at the process we are having now, and we have been all in the temporary from now 2021.
But consumers, we still have the fans, Figeac lovers, we still have them, and we are promoting to the new ones, and we are meeting very new consumers, new generation. So yes, consumers are moving, and it's very important to maintain the brand.
Yeah, also we maintain the DNA of Chateau Figeac, so the wine is better detailed, in fact, but the terroir is really expressed in the wine of Chateau Figeac. So the fan recognize always Chateau Figeac. I suppose you do too.
Yeah.
And it's very important for us to keep the same sort of family of fans of Figeac, and that can be growing also.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the style of Figeac later, when we'll talk a little bit about the vineyard and the winemaking. I just want to talk a little bit about the history of Figeac, because it's got a long history.
Yes.
I was wondering, where does the name come from, Figeac?
Figeac is a good name from the Gallo-Roman period, from the 4th century, and that's almost 2,000 years of history. So that's quite long to tell about. So we have remainings of this period, And of course, as it was Gallo-Roman, it was with vines. So afterwards, we had a lot of different period that we can find in the track is on the architecture of Chateau Figeac, and every period has new buildings and some others are disappearing, and so that's also what we do now. In the family, it is from 1892, and so we have all the vintages of Chateau Figeac from 1893 in the cellar.
Wow.
And so from this period, what is very important, I think, for the family is that always engineers have been in charge of the property and of the winemaking. Engineers mostly from the family, as I am, as my father was, and his father and father of my father, etc. So from the beginning, and that makes a very special identity of Chateau Figeac, and I think it's very important for the history and for the understanding of how Figeac is managed. Yeah.
Because I think one thing that I find quite interesting is in the 19th century, parts of the original Figeac estate were sold off that became Cheval Blanc,
Yes.
for example. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. It is. That was much, much bigger. And in fact, we centered Chateau Figeac around the castle. And a lot of plots were sold, very nice plots you're talking about, and some others more sandy, which are not so good. But the heart of Chateau Figeac is maintained around the chateau, the castle, the real one. And I would like to say also at this time there were not only vines, but there were also a lot of woods and a pond and a lot of things that remain now, and we are sort of protecting the nature and the biodiversity that was from this period. So it's smaller, but a quarter of Chateau Figeac is dedicated to something else than the vines, but just on the nature and the pleasure of the lifestyle, which is very Frenchy.
Yeah.
So we have all this part. We have also the fields for the horses that are now reworking on Chateau Figeac, and we have a lot of birds coming from the migration periods coming. That is the checkpoint every year, twice a year, and there are quite a lot of animals that are at Figeac at home. In fact, it's their home too. So for us, it's very, very precious.
Yeah.
It's not only a vineyard, it's a real estate. And the family, a part of the family is living, the Manancourt is living.
Yes, and we are very attached to this relation between Figeac, the people, the nature. And Figeac is also a team working on Figeac that makes it very lively. So all that is all intricate relations that are so, so precious at Chateau Figeac.
Yeah. I wanted to ask
Sorry. And also the respect of each one to the others and to the nature.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, how did your family come to own Chateau Figeac?
Sorry?
How did the Manancourt family, how did your family become owners of Chateau Figeac?
In fact, that was an engineer, a friend of my great-great-grandfather, who said to his friend, I can't buy this property, but it's a fine wine. So maybe you can buy it, and afterwards I will buy it to you when I have the means. But he didn't. So we kept it. It's sort of story like that, you know. It's very funny because it was just a residence for holiday first. And so there were people on Chateau Figeac making the wine and so, but nobody of the family. We were here just for summer because it was very healthy to breathe after Parisian normal life. Even in the 19th century, that was better to breathe here, they found.
Yeah, yeah. And it was your father, Thierry Manancourt, who I think for me really made Figeac what it was. Could you tell me a little bit about your father?
Yes, so you will see I admire a lot my father. He came just after the Second World War. because the man in charge of Chateau Figeac was retired. And so he came because he had a diploma of engineer in agronomics. And he came just after the war and everything was down. So the vineyard has to be rebuilt, sort of. And
there's a photo of Thierry.
Yes, hello, Daddy.
There
That's nice to see you.
Yeah, good, lovely photo.
And so he made a lot of experimentation here because he was coming from another region, which was Paris, in fact, in the city. And he said he wanted to know why, to know how to make progress in the traditions and so on. So he started at the beginning to know about the different cépages. There were 5 different cépages at this period. So he made different vinification separately and in different barrel for some years after in bottle and so. So that was very interesting, and also from the relief and so. And it was very interesting because when the date, the year of the wedding with my mother, in fact, it was so freezing. It was the 1st of 1956. So the vines died. And so a lot of experimentation my father made, were very helpful to make up a new vineyard with the proportion of vines, the variety that are now on Chateau Figeac. That's to say, 1/3 of Cabernet Franc, 1/3 of Cabernet Sauvignon, and just a little third of Merlot. And he made the DNA of the actual Figeac. And that was very interesting because he was always expecting something from experiments. And we still now have this mind, and we still work a lot with the University of Bordeaux. He worked a lot with Professor Penner, who was a real master of Bordeaux. He made some experimentation about the second fermentation that at this period nobody knows about. And we still have a lot of trainees here in tradition of my father, in fact. And we have a very good pleasure to work with the professor of the new university, which are the tutors, in fact, of our trainees. And in fact, the trainees are really succeeding also. Yes. So we are always, it's a challenge for us to be also very up to date, and to know about the new processing and so on. And we work for that, and it's very interesting, very special.
I think.
Yes, you can say that.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Manancourt was the premier Jura during in Saint-Émilion, which is very important, the Jurade. So it means promoting Saint-Émilion wines. He was premier Jura during more than 30 years, something like that. 20 or close to 30 years, but more than 20, I'm sure.
That's to say he was working for Chateau Figeac as an example, or as sort of leader. He wanted to make new things to help other people. He wanted to promote Figeac, but also Saint-Émilion in the whole bulk of Saint-Émilion. He wanted to make people know about the wine. And when in the 70s, he started to make people visit Chateau Figeac and open some bottles of 10 years old for the tasting, instead of having the tasting just of the barrel for the professionals. So people were just saying he's really bizarre because he opened very old bottles. But it was the date that the bottles were good and mature enough to be appreciated by amateurs. And so he made a lot of things like that. But he was not always looking for Chateau Figeac. He was looking for the region. And he's at the start of the L'Union des Grands Crus, UGCB, Union des Grands Crus, who did those fabulous journeys in America and then in Asia. So in the 70s, in the 80s, that was very, very, very early. And at the beginning, they were just sort of, you can count people on 1 or 2 hands. And now it's a very enormous organization. So he had in mind all the others around. That was very interesting too.
Did he, how did, I've always wanted to ask this question, maybe, how did your father, did he get on well with, say, someone like Robert Parker, who, was very influential in the 80s and 90s because he was. How was that relationship?
Oh, with Robert Parker. We have a book, just you can't see it, but there is a book of Robert Parker just behind me, but it's not on the screen. But we like him very much. And in fact, there was a sort of misunderstanding in between my father and him, but it was, in fact, not in front of the medias. They were very good together. But the problem was that Robert Parker would taste Chateau Figeac very early in the primeur, and he would appreciate very much Chateau Figeac when it is a bit older, when it is mature. But tasting Chateau Figeac, and you know what is the problem, that we have a very special terroir, which is gravel. And gravel in Saint-Emilion is a trap for the wine taster who was Robert Parker. So first of all, Robert Parker put not very good marks on Chateau Figeac, and so it was quite difficult for us to accept that. And but he said he would appreciate Chateau Figeac when it is later. And so we had to wait, but we had to sell in primeur, so that was a bit difficult.
Yeah.
But we have an admiration because he's really, really good wine taster, and I'm sorry because that was a sort of trap.
Yeah.
But now we are very good together. It's better.
Yeah. Did Thierry have a particular vintage of Figeac that he really liked?
The one he served to his fiancée, c'était le 47.
47.
Yes, the 47, because that was for a picnic, and they were lost with their car and so on. They had the picnic, and he opened a very nice bottle of 47, and she was delighted with it.
So this was with your mother, Marie-France, yes?
Yes. Oh, yes. He had just one. I heard of just one fiancée in my life. I don't know if he had another, but I think no. Yes. Hello, Mommy.
Yeah.
Mommy is just at the chateau behind us, but she's not here today.
Yeah. And is she well?
Yeah. She's living at Chateau Figeac, and she's a very important person at Chateau Figeac now, because when Daddy was away in 2010, she said, that's our work. Chateau Figeac is another one of our child, so I will do everything for it, for making it growing better and better. And so she's really, really working hard for Chateau Figeac, and with a lot of enthusiasm. I love this photo, this picture, because she has the smile that Figeac makes her.
And that's true. She's really involved in Chateau Figeac life, in Chateau Figeac decision. She is daily there.
Yeah.
And we have daily meetings and talking about Figeac, and not only about the wine and only about the business, but talking about rebuildings, talking about many points. And
yes, about
they built with your father Chateau Figeac.
Yes, yes. In fact, they did that together. My father was in the front, and my mother was the best supporter of my father.
Yeah.
All his life.
And she traveled a lot for promotion too.
Yes.
You know, I have the chance to travel for promoting Figeac all over the world, and you can't imagine how many people I meet all over the world saying to me, "Say hello to Marie-France," or "I remember Mr. Manancourt and Madame Manancourt," and it could be very famous winemakers, you know, in US or in Spain or something like that, or other region in French, because in France, because they loved wines, and they still have the culture of wine, and they don't have only French in Bordeaux, and they perfectly know they're not only Bordeaux wines.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the story I started off with at the beginning of the interview, where I said, you know, it was very early on a Sunday morning, and half the winemakers weren't there, but there was two very famous, you know, Thierry and Marie-France, with nobody there, just behind their bottles, sort of talking about the wines, and, you know, willing to talk to me. You know, I was a nobody back then, and talk to me for about an hour or so, you know, so that was what they were like, you know. So,
the expression of my mother is singing Figeac all over the world.
yeah, yeah, fantastic, fantastic. I want to talk a little bit, let's move on a little bit now. Can we talk a little about the vineyard a little bit? Because Figeac it's kind of different to other Saint-Emilion vineyards. Can you explain a little bit what makes it different?
Alors, Saint-Emilion is about 5,200 hectares, the appellation. It's very large appellation in Bordeaux, and it's very famous for the clay and limestone plateau, with many famous chateaux over there, and they use majority of Merlot and Cabernet Franc. And there is a very little part in the appellation, which is only 60 hectares of gravel. And Figeac owns about 30 hectares of gravel on this area. And we are close to Pomerol. We are at the gate of Pomerol, far from the plateau of clay and limestone. And
if you, sorry, can I just ask a question where you say that? If you could, do you feel Figeac is more a Pomerol or a Saint-Emilion?
No, it's Figeac. I couldn't.
Just Figeac.
Regarding to the weather condition, it's more a Pomerol. Regarding to the blend and to the great proportion, it's difficult. It's really Figeac. It's kind of unique blend of 1/3 of each grape varieties. But our Merlot approach is more Pomerol. I agree with that. And we can't have the same taste on the clay and limestone plateau. We are different. And so Figeac is in this region of the gravelly part of Saint-Emilion, and it's a very large vineyard too. We talk about the estate, it's 54 hectares, and on these 54 hectares, we have 41 hectares of vines. And so it means it's the largest first classified growth.
Yeah,
and so the uniqueness, yes, the uniqueness is we have 3 hills of this gravel, sometimes 5 meters, 6 meters deep on the top of the hill, and with blue clay in the subsoil. And so that's why Mr. Manancourt started very early to plant more and more Cabernet. It's very, Cabernet Sauvignon, for instance, loves gravelly ground, this warming soil with very good filtering power. And you know, Cabernet Sauvignon is more from the left bank because the spring is warmer, and Cabernet Sauvignon is a late variety, so it needs this very early spring to start growing. And here in Saint-Emilion, we are more in the country land, and it's colder, it's cooler, and so that's why Mr. Manancourt felt this potential for Figeac to plant Cabernet Sauvignon in high proportion. It means 1/3 of the estate, and so
it's quite
yes.
interesting to see that we dug quite deep. We dug about 15 meters deep to make a new winery, which is now on work. And when we dug, we found about 7 meters of gravel, and underneath that there was the lay of clay, the blue clay that is just afterwards coming up to the plateau of Pomerol. So that was very interesting, and for me it's fantastic to see in a great big scale the underground of Chateau Figeac, which is the gravel, which is very drainy, and underneath there is the freshness, there is even some humidity when it is necessary, and that explains a lot why at Chateau Figeac normally the vines are not suffering of the dryness. They have no stress, hydric stress, which is so important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is that blue clay? Is that the same blue clay as you find at Petrus? Is that
the vein starts. Yeah, the vein.
We have the vein, which is very low, the very low depth at the beginning of the property, at the south of the property, and then it goes down under the pool, and then goes down, very down under the hills of gravel, and then comes up on Pomerol. That is the same vein.
We are about in direct line the right one. Sorry for my Franglish. No, we are about 800 meters far from Petrus, something like that, less than 1 kilometer.
Yeah.
If we go straight.
And also, as we wanted to know exactly the soil, the ground, and the underground of Château Figeac, we asked the University of Dijon to make some experiments and to make some dugs. I don't know how, some dugs.
So your hole?
Holes, yes, very deep holes. And so we have the map, exact map of all the soil and ground and underground of Château Figeac, and we can see this clay, which is not really a surprise, but a richness for Château Figeac.
Oh, it's interesting. So it means Figeac is at the gate of Pomerol with the same weather condition as a soil. I can say like the Medoc, because the original, I know they don't like that, but the original gravel, this gravel, these pebbles arrived more than 1 million years ago from the volcanoes, from the center of France. It's flint and quartz. And so we have the same origin as Margaux, or this kind of appellations. And we are in the Saint-Emilion appellation, first classified growth, and we use the 3 grape varieties, the main varieties of Bordeaux in equal proportion. So here is our DNA at Figeac, and so it's a real Bordeaux wine, but it's really Château Figeac.
Yeah. And so as we're looking at this map, it's like 3 sort of gravel beds. Just looking at the map, how are the gravel beds, how are they situated in the vineyard? Like, do they go across from the top to the bottom of this map?
Exactly, in the middle, from the top to the bottom of the map, half of the middle, in the middle. So.
Yeah.
From the south to the north.
And from the south to the north, exactly. And we have this different gravelly ground. And so now we are planting the Cabernet Sauvignon more and more on the top, because it is a dryness part, and Cabernet Sauvignon love that. Mm-hmm. And then in the middle of the hill, we use Merlot or Cabernet Franc. It depends on the clay proportion, because Cabernet Franc doesn't like the dryness. Yeah. And then in the back, on more sandy soil, we use majority Merlot. And you have to know that we use our own clones now. We developed and we selected our own clones. We have a collection plot, and we use the buds of this collection plot to produce a new plants and replant Figeac with these all vines.
And also the clones come from the oldest plots of Château Figeac. Yeah. So we selected for 4 years the best individuals from the plots that dates from the 1970s to 1921. Exactly. And so that makes very genuine individuals for Château Figeac, because at this period there was no cloning. So every individual is unique, and so we have sort of family of unique specimens in this collection, and it's very, very rich patrimoine for our family and for Château Figeac.
Yeah, we continue to experiment and to do a lot of things in the vineyard and in the winery. Yeah, this is the same philosophy. Yeah?
Yes, and the collection is made with 1/3 of each cepage too.
Okay.
And we have a lot of different mother plants inside. So we want the biodiversity. We didn't want to only select the 2 best of each grape variety. So it was important to maintain a great biodiversity, a high percentage.
On each plot, we have a potential mix of different clones, and just not 1, 2, 3, but a lot of different clones can be on the same plot now with this selection. And what is very important is that Mrs. Manancourt, my mother, chose to put this new plot at the very best place, one of the very best places that are on Château Figeac. It is a new plot that was, instead of a field before there were cows and then there were horses, and she always wanted to have vines in this place, which is at the upper part of a gravel hill. And now she made her dream, and she has this plot, which is very important for us. So it's important, I think, to say that my mother made it not long ago.
Has the grape varieties always been about 1/3 each of Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon?
You mean in the past?
Yeah, yeah.
I told you it was in fact after the frost of 1956 that we had to replant a lot of dyed vines, and so my father decided at this moment what was the best place for the best varieties, owing to his knowledge at this moment. Maybe now we change a little bit because the knowledge evolved, but we stay. We still have this sort of 1/3 each.
Yeah, we try to maintain 70. I want to say 70% of cab in the vineyard. After we try to mix between Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, because yeah, as you said, Madame Douane, the knowledge evolved. We have a better knowledge on the subsoil, etc. So we want to adapt now.
And the climate.
And
too.
the climate is. We are not going maybe to talk about that. It's changing.
Yeah.
So we have to. And you talk about this study about the University of Dijon, and one of the questions was, what about Figeac in the next 50 years or next 60 years? And they, voilà, we have some solutions. And yeah, but we maintain 70% in the vineyard of Cabernet, mixed Franc and Sauvignon, and we maintain it in the bottle, in the final blend too. That's very important.
Yeah.
And we produce a second label.
Yeah, yeah. And so the second label comes from, does it come from younger vines or particular parcels, or
No.
is it a barrel selection? Or?
In the past, it used to be produced like that. Today, we have another philosophy. Sometimes it could be produced with old vines, young vines. It doesn't matter. I blend blind at the beginning, and Michel Roland is helping me for that. And because we have the philosophy of the second label named Petit Figeac now since vintage 2012, but Mr. Manancourt produced the first vintage in 1945. The name was La Grange Neuve de Figeac, quite long to spare and to remember. So the family decided to change it for the vintage 2012 and to change the philosophy. This is a real introduction to the Figeac universe, the Cabernet, Franc, Sauvignon, and Merlot, and it's a lighter view of Figeac. So that's why I need to blend blind, and I can say that some portion, sometime of vats producing Figeac are into the Petit Figeac to maintain the strong link between the little brother and the big brother.
Yeah.
That's very important, and I want to say the distribution of Petit Figeac. 80% to 90% of the distribution is maintained in Europe because this is our first market. Alors, we can find in the US, in the main cities, and in Hong Kong, in Singapore, bottles, but we want to maintain majority here in Europe because here is our first market, even if we are developing the exportation. So that's the philosophy of the second label, and introducing Figeac to new generation that could not buy a bottle of Chateau Figeac, we can understand, but they will drink a really good wine earlier, approachable earlier, and it's important for us. This is the philosophy we have for second label. It's not built with leftovers. That's it.
And can you just explain about the winemaking? What's the approach to the winemaking of Figeac?
Making the best. No, the winemaking starts on first it starts in the vineyard. I have to say that 90% of the quality comes from outside. You perfectly know that, and obviously on the date of harvest, of picking. We spend a lot of time in tasting berries, and I spend a lot of time in tasting berries. I want to pick at the right date. It means if you have, we monitor a lot the bunches. At a moment, no computer is able to give you the right date. You need to be in the vineyard and tasting. And for instance, I want to say that 3 days before, even if you have the laboratory analysis, it's perfect, you can have it. No, if you try, there's no flavors. We are producing wine with flavors and freshness. So if you try 3 days earlier, the Merlot is too early. Okay, it's perfect. You have sugar, you have acidity, but no flavors. you are picking out the right date, then the flavors are there, the fruits. And if you are waiting 3 days too long or 5 days too long, it's overripe. And so, first of all, this is the first step, maintaining the freshness. And you saw the map of the different plots we have, but I want to say we work intra-plots now, because regarding to the topography of Figeac, some plots are planted on the hill. It's maybe more than 1 hectare, and from the top of the hill to the back of the hill, of course, we have differences regarding to the temperature, regarding to the humidity, and we have sometimes 2 days, 3 days differences regarding to the ripeness. So it's very important to be focused in the vineyard, to spend time in the vineyard. And then I want to say, in terms of vinification, it's a little bit technique, but working on the flavors, it means being gentle, working with lower temperature than in the past, being gentle in terms of extraction. For instance, for the 2019, for example, for the 2019, the ripeness was so good. Components arrived slowly into the wine. We didn't have to extract too much. It means very slow pumping over. I do less and less pigeage today. So, and it's 1 month into the tank, so it means cold soak, very cold and static, and then alcoholic fermentation with little pumping over, and then 1 week of alcoholic fermentation, and then we have about 10 days to 15 days of maceration. And then, of course, for the maceration after the alcoholic fermentation, Figeac is one of the is using a very traditional technique which consists in submerging the cap into the wine.
Yeah.
It means we don't have to do any more pumping over, and we will maintain it in the temporary cellar, and we will maintain it in the new winery, which was a kind of défi for the tank builders. I have to say, Hortense is smiling because it was a lot of meetings with the tank producers. And this technique consists in submerging the cap into the wine under 50 centimeters of wine, because at this moment we have to extract the tannins. The wine is there, it's a red wine, but something is missing. It means the tannins, the structure of the wine. We have to build the body. And I always compare that to the tea infusion. If you move your tea leaves into your cup during 4 minutes, it's kind of pumping over. And after doing that 4 minutes long, it's over extracted. And if you let them submerge into your cup, it's perfectly balanced. We do the same. Yeah. And we have this experience, we have this knowledge, and we will maintain it. We have a lot of chateaux asking us, what's the secret of your submerged cap, etc. So it's always difficult. But no, we try not to answer that. But we have this knowledge, and it works well for Figeac. What we are doing at Figeac works for Figeac. I'm not saying it works for other estates or it works for other kind of terroir. And then after the alcoholic, so the vatting time is 1 month, and then the wine is going into barrel. And new oak, French oak, 100% for the malolactic fermentation. Alors 100% new oak, why? Because it's, wow, doing 100% new oak, what happened? So Mr. Parker is not there anymore, so what are you doing now? Figeac is using, since Mr. Manancourt could use 100% new oak, it means since the 70s, I think 75, because the coopers could produce enough new barrels. We use that. We have 35 pages of details for new oak for our barrels. We are the nightmare for the coopers maybe. But why we are using this new oak? Because Figeac needs aeration through the wood. We don't like the wooden taste. Figeac, we don't like wooden taste. First of all, you need to feel the purity of the terroir and the fruits. But this aeration, it's kind of natural micro-oxygenation, will give harmony to the tannins and will give the harmony to the blend with the 3 grape varieties. Because you have to know, Merlot and Cabernet Franc, blending them is perfect. It's a pure Saint-Émilion wine. Blending Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, it's a left bank wines. But when you blend Cabernet Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon in such proportion, it means 1/3 of each. They hate each other. They don't like each other, but they hate each other. I can tell you that when you use 2-3% too much of Cabernet Franc, you have an opposite effect, which is Cabernet Franc will make the Cabernet Sauvignon very dry, and yeah, dryness. It will give the dryness to the Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's a lot of precision. I always say I use some fine tunings. It's a kind of Figeac, in my opinion, is a kind of Formula One, and I do some fine tunings like that, and it's very sensitive for the blending. And what happened, Figeac with the gravely ground. We can talk about the tannins at the end of the graphite effects because the bunches are feeding by this soil, but we have a very flavored wine, light wine. It's medium body Figeac. It's not full body. It's always medium body because of the gravel. We have a lower alcohol level compared to the clay. I love clay wines from the clay, but it's very different. And we have less tannins compared to, for instance, a Cabernet or a Merlot which grow on the clay. So it supports the tannin from the barrel. That's why we use 100% Merlot. If I have to work with clay and limestone on the clay and limestone plateau, I will not use 100% Merlot, I'm sure. But Figeac supports and needs it because of the sugar varieties, because of this medium body wines.
Yeah. One question that sort of came out last. Sorry, just from William Lawson was asking, do you do the malolactic in barrel or in tank?
No, in barrel. We did some experiments, and we prefer doing it in barrel. And we try to blend in February. So we start to have our meetings with the team for the blend. It means the team because you have our consultant, you have Michel, you have our cellar master, you have our technical, and myself, of course, and Hortense when she's at Figeac, and of course we have about 5 meetings. She will be there for 3, and Madame Manancourt is there. And at the end of the tasting, she wants to taste the final result at the end of the tasting.
She's a very good taster.
Yeah, of course. And I try to start middle of January and to have the 100% blended beginning of March. After, it depends on the primeur. If I have time to do all the wines, because moving the wines can stress the wine. And unfortunately or fortunately, we have to show the wine during the first week of April for the en primeur week. And but I have to, and we always show 100% final blend during en primeur. And so that's why 2019, what you tasted is what you have. What you taste is what you have. There is no press wine. I use press wine too into the final blend, 2-3%, which is interesting. But it's long work with a lot of. We have to pay attention on many details, and a new member of the team is research and development.
Yes.
A new man will join the team next week.
He was first of all trainee, a very good trainee.
Like me.
Major, you say?
Major of
his promotion.
University,
Yeah. And I would like to add that blending is a very, very interesting period. And for my sake, I really appreciate being at the blending, because we have about 40 different plots when we are testing the wines. And so it makes different volume, of course, in the productions. And so we have to blend because we have the volume, but we have the quality, and we have the good balance, and it's very, very interesting.
I don't have any pressure on the volume. I have to say
yes, that's true.
That's true. Yeah.
That's really the quality that is so important for us. But nature gives us such a variety of plots, and with the different levels, with the different cepage, with the different orientation to the sun. So 40 different plots, and we are sort of different ingredients, and we can be very, very precise, and we have the blend which is so enriching each plot. One plot can be very good, but if you put the blend, it's much more than 40 plots. It's sort of thousands of plots together. It's so good.
Is that where sort of everyone says sorry, that's where Misha Roland is very, very good in the blend, specifically the blending. What does Misha, has he changed how you look at Figeac, or what's his
Michel is,
contribution?
Michel, of course, is very good on the blending, and not only. Michel is not arriving at, when Michel comes to Figeac, he's not saying, okay, give me the bottle, I will do the blend. No, we are working together. He's coming to the team, he's part of the team, and we work together. Of course, his experience is, he has very long experience, so it's very interesting. And Michel advice a lot in terms of next year, maybe, because we always have this kind of question, what can we do better next year? And maybe this plot of Cabernet Franc, I'm sure we can do better on this plot of Cabernet Franc, etc. So what Frédéric think about this plot for next year, we have to improve.
Yes.
And so that's, and Michel is taking part of the team, and
he makes propositions.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to say, at the end, I have to take the decision. And at the end, the family Manancourt, Madame Idoine and Madame Manancourt will say, okay, they taste the wine and they say, okay, we feel our philosophy and we feel Figeac. So let's go.
Yeah. And then we've just got a sort of few minutes left. So we must talk about the new winery.
No problem. Yeah.
So tell us about, I will put up a little photo of the model because it's not finished yet. So there we go.
Soon, really
there
soon.
We go, soon. How soon? How soon, Frédéric?
It's a bit delayed because of, what our enemy is COVID.
Yeah.
And so we have a temporary winery that can be used as long as we want, as we need. So we have no problem with making very, very good wine in this temporary winery. And we don't want to urge the new winery. We just want it to be perfect. So we take time, we bring time to make it as perfect as we can, exactly like we wish. And this story begins with the reflection about the process. First of all, we looked at what we had and we say we have to change because we need much more contents, we need much more place, much more room to make what we want as we have the new knowledge. In fact, my father and mother, they built a new winery that was new in 1972. That was brilliant new, but now it is no more good because there was mainly very, very big vats, and we want to have wine in intra-plot and to make wine very detailed, and it is no more that sort of vats that we need, and we had no more room to put the new vats. But they made something very new that was also to dig underground to make the wine underground. And that was very nice. So we kept the mind of making very nice wine in very healthy winery and making it like a sort of theater with a big arch opening to the vineyard to make people see from what comes the grapes and from what comes the juice. And so this theater, the new ideas we kept, but we have a bigger view also that the vineyard is a bit larger than it was. Very interesting because we have place.
Not too big, huh? Not too big.
You have a good meal now. And we didn't want it to go anywhere on Château Figeac. We didn't want to kill the trees. We didn't want to take place on the vineyard. We didn't want to go in the park on the country. So in fact, we built it at the exact place that was the best one, said my mother. That was the place of the previous winery. So we have to unbuild the previous winery to rebuild a new wine at the place, but with a new underground. So we have now 2 undergrounds instead of 1. and it's very nice study. But people can come and see from 2021. They are welcome at Chateau Figeac to visit and to understand our winery. You can see on the right part of the maquette, you can see here, it's the arrival of the grapes, sorry, and then it's coming from the right to the left, from the harvest to the vats, then to the barrels, and then underneath to other barrels. And it is on the same level going underground, because it is on the hill, and the shape of the hill is reproduced on the roofs you can see. And so it's very good for the temperatures which are maintained, and it is very economic in matters of energy and so on.
Yes, and we started this project 6 years ago in our mind when the family Manancourt asked me, Frédéric, what do you need to work better? So don't ask me this question, I have a lot of demand. So now, first of all, we talk about, of course, the process, but I want to say that this project is more than only a process. Of course, you have gravity, you have very good temperature control and natural temperature control, etc. But this is more than a project. It's a very lovely architecture. We work with Bordeaux architect, Mr. Tropré, who felt immediately the philosophy of the Manancourt family and Figeac. And the family added reception rooms for welcoming people, because this is a tradition at Figeac. Added tasting rooms, not only for us, Neil, professional, but for people visiting Figeac. And I look forward being in this, and they added the office, my new office, and I look forward to being there. And not every day, but every week, I have a question. Frédéric, do you? No, I can.
It's Christmas every day.
It's Christmas every day. No, and it's really Figeac. You feel where in every rooms. It's not too much. It's Figeac. It's stones. It's wood. And I can tell you, look forward to showing this lovely construction, and not only Figeac from the 21st century. So, and it's still Figeac, and it's still Figeac.
It is very important for us to make people feel at Figeac when they come back after the works. With the new winery, they have to feel they're still at Figeac.
Yeah.
And so it was very important to keep the style, to keep the material. So it's very, very nice stones. It's very nice wood, and you can feel in the courtyard. You don't first of all see it's different.
Yeah.
But after the big trees, you say, oh,
yeah,
that's something a bit different. What is it?
One number, we used to have 1,600 quarter meters, and the family built more than 5,000. And you have less roof outside compared to the past.
Yeah.
Everything is hidden into the hill of gravel for temperature control, natural temperature control, of course. But you will, Figeac is, I don't want to say more Figeac than in the past, but it's really Figeac. And
And
so the first
in the tasting room, which is now open to the outside, you can see the surrounding. You can feel at Chateau Figeac and understand why Figeac is so special, because you are at the top of the 3 hills of gravel. So it's quite interesting. We have, the spirit of Chateau Figeac is still really here.
Well, I look forward to visiting. You said it'll be finished in next year.
And they will. Family Manancourt loves art and music, especially, not only music, but especially music. And they prepared some rooms to welcome some concerts. And I'm sure we could do something, Neil, and not only about classic music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you and Antonio are doing guitar solos. I think
we will do some guitar inside.
Yeah,
but no, that's true. It's Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so reached the end of the this fascinating interview. I really want to thank you for joining us today. It's been so interesting to learn about Figeac as it's opening a new chapter.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Neil.
And I wish you all the best for the rest of this crazy year. And I hope to see you soon.
Right. Things are going better.
Thank you very much.
But keep safe and bye everybody. And enjoy.